kids, what time is it? It's Piperlyne and Sonya Lee time.
I don't even know where that came from.
We had to have
Hey, boys and girls.
gather round.
We're going to sing the hello song. No, we're not.
No, not at all.
No.
We are going to talk about what's been going on in our lives this week.
Yes, we are.
Hello, I'm Sonya Lee.
And I'm Piperlyne, and this is In My Experience.
And this morning we're experiencing silliness. The joy guides are with us, and the hot tea is flowing.
Yes.
It's a chilly morning. But...
And we should clarify that's Arizona or Phoenix chili.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Chili for us.
Not Michigan or Canada chili.
Or even Pine Top right
Or even
now.
Pine Top. That's correct. That's correct.
So as we do every week when we come together, we sit and chat for a while and catch up on our lives. And then sometimes a theme sort of develops. And we realized today we were talking about relationships. So we thought, okay, let's talk about relationships.
And that's not a big enough, broad enough topic, right?
Right.
I mean, relationships are everything. And at this point, we have relationships with everything. We have relationships with ourselves.
With the earth.
With the earth. With the tree out there.
We
or
do.
the tree that's no longer out there.
With the other humans.
Yes. Whether we want to or not.
Mm-hmm.
We have relationships with them.
Because that is true. Because there are a lot of people out there that have decided that they're just not going to do people anymore. I find that fascinating. I want to know more. It's too people-y.
Yes.
And then you've got the MGTOW, men going the other way. MGTOW.
Oh.
I think that's how you say it. And those are, the men that have decided to not have anything to do with women in any way. Not work with them, not date them, not interact with them. I find
Which is
what?
Interesting.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. Like, how do you manage that?
Well, I mean, and I get if you don't want to have a relationship, right? If you just like, I'm done with men or I'm done with women or whatever it is. I think probably everyone on this planet has had that thought at one point or another. Whether they've been married or involved in a relationship or not, they've had that thought. But it's to completely not have anything to do with more than 51% of the population is interesting.
It sure is.
And I don't know. I can't say I've ever had that thought of not having anything to do with that large amount of people.
Oh, I've thought about it.
Well,
remember, 2 brothers, father, 5 sons. I've thought about it. And I feel like I, know and identify and get along with men pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And there are still times where it's like, can I just not ever have to talk to a man again as long as I live? That would be like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But of course we can't do that because
I don't think you can.
You can do anything you want.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how you function in society would have to completely.
Here's the thing for me.
I'll go onto my farm in the middle of nowhere, my acre plot of land in Hawaii.
Why just limit it to half of the species? If you're gonna do it, go full tilt.
Go
all in. Go all in, right? But I and again, no judgment here. I don't need any emails or hate mails, okay? From the males. No hate mail from the mail. It brings within my, the healer archetype in me and my question girl archetype, what is unhealed within you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there is truly no need for you to have an interact, then it will just occur naturally. I believe organically.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like, well, I won't use an example with that. I'll just leave that there.
Just take my word,
just
organically.
Take my word, right? So to deny anything, right? What we resist persists.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be in that state of denial or be in that state of fixed beingness, and maybe that's where we're going with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
This fixed state of being. You know, when you ask the questions why, everything that comes back is a negative, is a negative experience, a negative interaction, a negative outcome. So I don't see that as a positive evolution of growth to a new understanding, right? I don't see that as being enlightening. I see it as being disenfranchising. And so that makes my heart hurt. And you can do whatever you want. I don't care if you like me, hate me. You can ignore me. It happens often. But I am concerned when you think, oh, yeah, this is the solution. There's more work to be done there.
Right.
More healing work to be done there, right?
Well, and I think that's like a classic expression of healing work that is being done, at least from what I've seen. You take the pendulum,
yes,
and you're over here, and you pull it up way up high to one side, and you let it go. It swings way high to the other side.
True.
And if you just let it go, then it finally comes to rest in the center. A knee-jerk reaction. It's interesting. If you don't follow us on Instagram, you should. It's in_my_experience on Instagram. And I posted this. This actually came from Word Porn, which is a great site on Instagram if you're interested in following them. I don't have anything to do with them.
Right.
They're snarky and sarcastic, but I think it's funny. I'm kind of snarky and sarcastic. Anyway, this post was neither. This post was, the habits you created to survive will no longer serve you when it's time to thrive. Get out of survival mode, new habits, new life.
Interesting. I love that. And that goes along with this because I was reading a Reddit subthread because one of the MGTOW subthreads finally got censored because they've been violating community standards. But
gotcha.
There was this discussion where someone was asking what it is, why do men support it, and why women don't like it. But this person said, I don't know anything about this, so someone please explain. And so there was this response, which I thought was beautiful, of for and against that, right? And this is not picking on them. It's just this one little piece of relationships, and we're going to look at much more of that. So please don't think that's what this whole thing's about. No. But this, I think, is going to help us in where we're going because it's going to, well, you'll find out. So he says, 4, society teaches us that men are only valid if they have a female partner, and that it is their job to be traditional partner husband, meaning that they have to be the primary breadwinner. They have to be rational and play golf and enjoy a cold brew with the boys. MGTOW, men going their own way, is about a community movement about breaking from these patterns and finding happiness on their own terms without a long-term relationship, a decidedly progressive ideal.
Okay.
Here's the against. MGTOW in practice can turn pretty hostile and toxic as these men turn, I don't need a female partner to be a valid human being, into all women everywhere are sluts and whores who deserve to be raped and killed, which is not exactly progressive.
No.
Just because you had 1 or 2 bad relationships doesn't mean all women are out to destroy you. After all, as the adage goes, if you smell shit everywhere you go, you should maybe check under your own shoe.
Yeah.
So, as far as relationships go, you were talking that pendulum swing, right?
Right.
And that's just one example, right? Male, female, romantic dynamics or dysfunction. We had... Or both. We had Valentine's Day just the other day. I've never been a real big, a card is nice. Whether you make it or buy it, it don't matter. But I've never been big on the, hey, treat me great every day of the year. And then you don't have to do a whole bunch of stuff on that one day to tell me that you love me, right?
Right.
I'm not big on flowers every once in a while, but pretty much why cut them? They die. Leave them growing in the ground, and then everyone can appreciate them. I don't want to go out to dinner because it's going to be busy as hell and overpriced. Why would I do that? Right. I can make a lovely meal at home and be very comfortable and happy. And I got a lot of jewelry already, like fake. So
Because that's how I roll.
Because that's how I roll. You know. So for me, that's not a really big kind of a deal, right? But there might be some people out there that would say, oh, it's Valentine's Day and I got to do this and that, or the ball and or whatever, right? But then there are other kinds of relationships too, like familial ones, friendships, business relationships. What other relationships?
Well, I mean, I think specifically parent-child.
Oh,
more than family. I mean, family is its own thing,
right?
But parent-child, there's a whole.
Let's break that down, right?
Other dynamic.
Parent-child, siblings,
outer
extended family,
right?
Grandparent-child. There's a lot of grandparents that are raising grandchildren right now. That has created a very different kind of relationship. Because think about that. Our parents worked. We were latchkey kids. Right?
We're Gen X, by the way.
Right. Some grandchildren, our children are being raised by the silent generation and baby boomers. And in a lot of those cases, they're not working. So they get to be there with them. And although they have more knowledge and experience, and some of that might be a little outdated, they definitely have more time,
right?
Although, albeit not as much energy. Like I think about when I was, became a mother at 24 and when I became a mother at 35, 36, those were two very different pregnancies. Very different pregnancies. And it was the first time with my third pregnancy, it was the first time that I actually felt my age, if you will, through that pregnancy. That and everybody kept calling it advanced fetal maternal, which I was about to punch somebody in the head over that.
Yeah, I can tell you stories of that.
So anyway, and we've been talking about relationships as far as what's happening in our life, in our world, and both of us have multi-generational households. We live with our mothers. They support us. We support them. At this point in their life.
With our children.
At
least in Sonia's case, one of her children.
Right. And so that makes a different dynamic. For me, it's recent. We just recently moved in to help my mom out because she had to have some major surgery and needed that extra support. So it's been interesting, and I've talked about this before, some of the dynamics and some of the dysfunctions that have reared their ugly head I haven't seen in 40 so years.
Right.
That I'm having to go, oh, I thought I healed that shit. Apparently not, because it's bugging the hell out of me now.
Not yet.
So, and then we've got, the North Node in Gemini this next 18 months, right? That's the twins. That's partnerships. That's, relationships, agreements, contracts. And so I think that focus is there, right? And then we got all this Aquarian energy that's happening right now.
Community and larger community.
Right. Who you are in that community.
Humanity,
how you contribute to that. Right. All of that. And so that might be why that's our topic of conversation today, because the energy, there's only 6, 7 planets right now, the Aquarian stellium sort of focusing that for us. And I know for me, it's crossing my 7th and 8th house, so it's definitely about partnerships and relationships.
Right.
And then the 11th house too, right, which is friends and associations and things like that.
Right.
So the one thing I think that we can both agree on is that our life experiences have given us a broader perspective, which oftentimes helps us in our relationships to be able to sort of see it from their perspective.
Right.
Know when this is just a projection or a reflection. But maybe you don't. Maybe you're sitting there circling the drain in this relationship going, I can't get out and I don't know how to change it.
Right.
That happens a lot. We see a lot of clients like that, right?
Yes.
And it is challenging. And, what is so interesting to me, for myself, and actually what I share with my clients is, I hear you and understand you, and you're probably right. but let's look at it from their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when you can see it through the other person's eyes,
Right.
that gives you more ideas on how you can work with this energy. Some might call it manipulate. Some might call it, compromise.
Mm-hmm.
Some might call it acquiescence,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when you're just sitting there looking at it from your perspective, right, then it's like you're not turning the diamond,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that you can see some of those other facets that are happening there. And I think and that is not saying that, you have to let it slide or you have to honor their perspective or you have to accept what is happening. I'm just saying when you can see it from their perspective, even if you don't understand it,
Mm-hmm.
at least you know what you're dealing with now.
Right.
You were going to say.
Oh, I was just, you think about specifically with the example you gave, the diamond, you think about a diamond, you look at a diamond, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You can understand more of its beauty when you look at it all around, all the way through.
You can see the occlusions.
Right.
You can see the
and you can
clouds.
you have a better understanding of it, of the diamond, and it may become less beautiful or more beautiful, but it's a holistic view. And when I'm able to expand my vision or perception of something, it's easier to understand, it's easier to accept it or not.
Yeah.
When there is a wider view. I mean, it also brings compassion into play. Now, I'm going to out myself. I stayed up way too late last night watching Bridgerton.
Oh.
So on Netflix.
Oh.
It's a 7 series. It's a series with 7. Anyway, it's a romance.
Oh, I'll have to see
But
what that's
by
about.
Shonda Rhimes.
Okay.
Produced it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was all the rage however long ago, like a couple of months ago, and I just finally sat down to watch it. And so if you've seen Bridgerton, you're going to know what I'm talking about. The 2 main characters, they get into a relationship. He's doing things, they're married. He's doing things that she doesn't understand. She's taking it as an affront to her, right? So why are you doing this to me?
To me, yeah.
And it comes down to a situation where she comes to realize things about his past. And while it doesn't make what he did okay, it allows her to look at it and then decide what she's going to do from there.
Love that.
And so, yeah, it's I've even heard people explain it as soft porn, and I will say they have some a reality basis in that. Yes,
I'll have to check this out.
Yeah, it's kind of
It
like
is Netflix.
Outlander.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
So if you've seen that, then that's what we're talking about.
okay.
But and it's kind of trite, but it's also, I mean, I watched the whole thing, so I enjoyed it. But I appreciated that, and I think that is a realistic thing for us in our life. I mean, I know for me specifically with my child, as I've mentioned before, he was diagnosed with autism at 2. He had a slew, whatever the word is, of issues even before he was born. And so he was diagnosed with autism at 2.5. And he is 10 now and has been basically nonverbal in the sense that now he can express his needs and even his wants, but he doesn't have a conversation. And it can be hard to ask him certain questions because he doesn't respond. And so I have had to, I mean, you think of most parents with their children, you have the nonverbal child till, 12 months, maybe 2 years.
2 or 2.5, yeah.
Right. And then they start verbalizing, and that continues to happen. Well, Nolan and our experience has been different. And so I have had to just to be the type of mother that I feel I need to be, I have had to sit down and look at things from every possible angle and perspective that I can and put myself into his place as often as I can. And I do it in my work, and I've been doing it in my work for years. So I may have come into this with a couple of tools more than maybe other parents in this situation, but I'm still going to tell you it's hard.
Oh yeah,
it's hard, because I have to, there are assumptions. When we walk into relationships, there's always assumptions. There always is. Yeah. Whether we bring them in or we see something on their face for like 2 seconds and we're like, oh, well, then this.
Right.
Whatever that is. And then we start acting on it.
Yep.
Whether we have any idea whether it's true or not. And
does that sound like social media? Anyway, I'm sorry. Keep going.
So that has been my personal experience with that, and one of the requirements of me being a mother to my child is I have to do that so I can understand when he tells me that his body is sad. Right? So, okay, let's take a moment and step out of how I'm seeing the world and interacting with the world and step into how he is. And I may be right sometimes. I'm sure I'm wrong sometimes.
Well, he lets you know.
Yes, he can say no.
Yes, he can.
He can say no. So it's a challenge. It's not easy, and it's a choice that you have to make every day. I mean, we have been, like I said, doing this for years, and I still have to remind myself every day to take a moment and look at something from his point of view, at least do my best.
Right.
And I think when it comes to another thing that they said on Bridgerton that just clicked in is another character was talking about her long-term relationship with her husband before he died. And she's like, we chose every day to love each other.
Yeah.
And I think that that is part of it. If you choose every day to love someone, then you are constantly working to understand to the best of your ability what their perception of the world is and what their experience of the world is and what their experience of you is. Right? Because I've got this whole thing about who I am, and I know that. But I mean, when I was teaching, I remember in the same day, in the same class, 2 different students. One said, you are the most warm, nurturing teacher I have ever met.
Right.
And I had another student say, she's like, I don't know how to say this without being mean. I'm like, oh, I'm not too worried about it. So just say what you need to say. She's like, sometimes you're just really cold. And I'm like, well, yeah, I am. I can be extremely nurturing and I can be cold. I can, without a doubt.
Yep.
And so allowing yourself to see yourself from their perspective and having a strong enough sense of yourself. I think that when I'm in a place when I have a strong sense of myself, my relationships work best. My relationships work best because I know what I am. Yeah. And I know who I am. And hearing how someone else perceives me is a good thing.
Sure.
Doesn't mean I'm going to do anything about it.
Right. Or you could do everything about it.
Or I could.
Oh my gosh, I got to change my whole life now because somebody...
Depending on the relationship, depending on how it sits with you.
Right. If they caught you on a good or a bad day.
Right.
Because that could be too, right? Like,
oh yeah.
Sometimes you can be on top of the world, but when you're not on top of the world, then it's like the world is just piling on. I loved what you said, though, about that from that Bridgerton, and I think, yes, if you choose to love every day, and every day you get to choose.
Right.
That's like, to me, that's like, and don't forget this, because this is the key. Like, if you're looking, okay, what are the keys to a happier life? Knowing that every day you get to wake up, if you wake up, and you get to choose. how that day's going to be, who you're going to be with. And there, for anyone out there that's going to be like, I have no choices in my life. That's a choice. You choose to believe that you have no choices. And I'm not saying that to be flippant.
Right.
I've been, and I have had people in my life that were in very, very challenging lives. They didn't last their whole lifetime. They did eventually break. I had a client that just absolutely could not do anything in their life because of their mother and their mother's health needs.
Mm-hmm.
And just everything that we talked about, it was like, can't. Well, a couple of years go by, mom dies.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's no more mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then, she comes to see me and she's like, well, I don't know what to do with myself now.
Right.
Well, what about all the things that you wanted to do that you couldn't do with her? Yeah, I don't want to do any of those now. That's really interesting. Why do you think that is?
Mm-hmm.
How much of yourself, like sometimes when we say this is just my lot in life,
Mm-hmm.
we let go. And sometimes in that letting go, we lose ourselves.
Right.
Right? And how many people have lost themselves in a relationship?
Right.
And it doesn't have to just
To
be
anything. Yeah.
I was gonna say, and not
Yeah,
just
sorry.
a romance. No, you're
Yes.
totally. We're bebopping it now.
We're
vibing.
jabbing.
We're vibing because you can lose yourself as a caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
You can lose yourself
In a job.
in a job. You
Your
can lose
relationship
yourself
to your job.
in a marriage, in child rearing,
Mm-hmm.
in an illness.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are, and that's why we say that there are relationships. People that don't ever leave their hometown,
Mm-hmm.
right? My relationship is with the roots that have been created for me here versus the people I can't wait until I'm old enough to get out of this one horse town and I'm never looking back, right?
I resemble that.
Right? And relationships with your things, hoarders,
Right.
minimalists,
Right.
right?
It was interesting. An acquaintance of mine, and I didn't know this about her because I just knew her on the level of she volunteered in the charity, in my charity.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know this piece about her, but she just popped up on Instagram and she said, so for those, she's like, I garnered a really large following on Instagram talking about my journey with minimalism.
Oh.
And so I'm like, oh, I didn't know this about her, right?
Right.
So I'm reading her story because now I'm interested. And she said, and big things happened in her life. She had a miscarriage. She had twins where both died. She's had 2 children since she started her minimalism journey.
We're just topping off the tea. Keep going.
And so with that, she said, it started with all the changes that had happened in my life. It got to the point where my minimalism was taking over my life.
Oh.
And I wasn't allowed to live my life the way I wanted to anymore because I had changed. And the minimalism, the way that I thought I should live, kept interfering.
Wow.
She's like, and it was taking the joy and the pleasure that I had in my life. She said, so I have stepped away from that. She said, so you will see, if you continue to follow me, you will see my kids have more toys than they have ever had. She's like, I have started homeschooling, so I have homeschooling stuff all over the place. She said, so I just want to let you know that if you were following me just for my minimalism experiences,
Right.
you may not want to.
Oh, wow.
Because I won't be doing that anymore.
That's so Aquarian.
Isn't that amazing?
Because it's time to let go of the old and find something new.
And
so Aquarian.
you know what I find so interesting is that there are people who are stepping into the minimalism because that's where they're supposed to go, because that's their experience, while she is stepping out of it because that is not her experience anymore.
Right. And it's also looking at healthy and unhealthy relationships.
Right.
Because it was a healthy relationship when she started it, and then it became unhealthy. And this is what I tell people about addictions. Because, I come from addictive genes. And so I've had to discipline myself to not have addictions. I still do, because think it might be genetic. But hyper awareness of the addictive tendencies keep me, for the most part, from becoming an addict, if you will.
Right.
But let's say you are addicted to alcoholism or drugs, and then you get off of them. And I've seen this happen. And then you become, or you're addicted to food, and then you lose weight, and now you become addicted to exercise.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. And calorie counting. All you're doing is shifting your addiction from one thing to another.
Yes.
You're addicted to smoking. You quit smoking. Now you're a nail biter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's not about the thing.
Right.
It's about the pattern. It's about the habit. It's about the addiction to, and that can create unhealthy relationships of all kinds, right? I think about sex. Same thing.
Oh, that's addiction, yeah.
Right? You can have a healthy relationship, or you can have an unhealthy one. And there are a lot of places you could go there. And there are a lot of people that would say that, my fetish is healthy. And you're like, no, your fetish is sick and twisted. But who am I to judge? Right?
But again, you do you, boo.
You do you, boo. Right? And then we sort of preface those things, and we look at those. Another good one is, those that would say that they are addicted to a political ideology. You knew I was going to go there.
Yeah, well.
But is that a healthy relationship or an unhealthy one? Yeah. And who gets to make that determination or judge that? Because there's a whole lot of judgy McJudger. I've been actually watching some of the hearings, and I don't know how they're going to make a decision. Because unless you have again, I'm like the fulcrum, okay? I'm not swaying either way. Both sides are presenting some pretty valid and interesting arguments, right? Interpretation is the key here. And I don't know how they're, I wouldn't want to have to be the judge on that. Because right now, as it sits, it's like, well, they got a good point. On the other hand, they've got a good point. Oh, but see, you didn't say. But then on the other hand, so it's not an easy thing to make. And it is real easy to paint it with a great big broad stroke of a wide brush. That broad wide strokes always make me nervous, because somebody gets splattered with paint or shit or blood or whatever. Whatever you're using is your medium.
Well, I have always said that as soon as you think that the answer is only two, that it's either or.
Didn't we talk about option C last week?
Yes.
We did. Okay.
Yeah.
But we're talking about relationships this week.
Right. But it's the same thing. I mean, I have to accept their everything that it is, or I have to accept none of it. And, well, accepting some or not accepting some may end the relationship. The either or isn't necessarily the best place to come from, unless, of course, as always, if you are unsafe, if you are being harmed, that is never okay.
If you're harming someone else.
Never okay.
Right. However, I don't believe just women have the prerogative to change their mind. I believe everybody has the prerogative to change their mind.
Well, of course.
And so, as such, I believe everyone has the prerogative to change. So I don't like it when people get labeled or judged unduly harshly. Even if they do something that I find highly offensive, I still want to know about redemption. I still want to know about remediation. I want to know about being able to, I can't think of the word, to be able to learn and grow and change and be, why can't I find the word? Rehabilitated.
Thank you. I'm like, I got nothing for you.
I believe in rehabilitation, and not as a pie in the sky. I mean, are there some things out there, some that can't be rehabilitated? Of course there are. Are there relationships that can't be rehabilitated? Of course there are. And I believe that at an individual level, even if the relationship can't be healed or brought to a state of common ground, common thread, then individually there needs to be some healing, some rehabilitation go on, so that before you come into the next relationship with whatever it is,
right,
you've learned, you've grown, You've moved away or towards that which was incomplete or
Right.
incongruent in your life before.
Right.
I mean, we're not here to just, I mean, there are some, which reminds me, I was going to ask you what your Mercury and Nolan's Mercury was, because I think that's an interesting, you guys are creating new pathways to communication. I'd love to know what that is. But anyhow, we can take that on the side if you want. It was something you said earlier that I thought, I don't want to forget that point. But
okay.
yes, but we're here to grow. We're here to evolve and grow the soul.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We get so caught up in the humanism that we forget that there's more to us than that. That we have a higher relationship. Some of you might call it a spiritual, a religious one,
Right.
or a spiritual one.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a relationship too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe that my relationship is with that rock, because that's all that there is when I'm dead.
One of the things, and I have no idea who said the quote, and I won't say the exact quote because I don't know it, but the idea behind it is that so much of what we have done as humans is focus on what needs to be done, that we stopped paying attention to the relationships that occur when what needs to be done. We've become so, I mean, you could call it, you could call it survival back in, back in the day, where if we don't do this, we
Survivor
will die.
of the fittest.
Or, these days you could call it I was going to say capitalism, but that doesn't fit. That's not exactly what capitalism is, a whole other story. But the thought of we need to get this work done. The focus is the work.
Yeah.
And we lose sight of the relationships that are occurring. And the thing is, well, there's always important work to be done, without a doubt. I believe that the reason we are here is for our relationships.
And we get to use the tools of all those other things, right? Wind blows, fire burns, water washes, right? Waters are emotions, fire is actions, swords are air, right? We do a job so that we can have a relationship, so that we can have an intellectual or emotional exchange here on an abundant earth. The wheel turns. And so to be able, when I hear people go, I have no relationships in my life. Well, if you're a hermit, then yes, I'm going to believe you. Otherwise, there's someone, somewhere, that you have a relationship with. Maybe you work a job and the only people you interact with at all during the day are the customers or the clients. That's a relationship.
Right.
Some people have relationships where they watch small children. So all they do all day is talk with 2 and 3 year olds, and they can't, or mothers. Maybe a mother resembles this remark. All they want to have is a conversation with an adult, to have that relationship and interaction with like-minded people. That would be cocooning.
Well, that goes back
clumping.
to our conversation last week about tribes.
And tribalism, absolutely. So, there's so much to it. Like we said, it was a really big sort of theme. But I like that we sort of been just playing at this and moving some of the cards around on the table and seeing other ways that we can make matches, because the biggest relationship I believe that anyone's going to have is going to be the relationship with themselves. The most important is the relationship with yourself. Let's call that the pin that you put in where you're going to spiral everything else out from that point, right? And then what you sort of draw in to yourself, and the relationships that you get outside, because I do believe as well that we can create our own reality, that we can certainly attract to ourselves those things that support us or challenge us. And sometimes that can be a very negative experience, or a very positive one. If it's balanced, it's going to be a little of both.
Right.
Because as Osho says, right, success is riding a tiger.
when it comes to relationship with self, I mean, I think the whole COVID experience of 2020 and continuing on as we are now, right?
Yes.
Relationships came key.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you were single living alone and all of your relationships were brought down and you felt pain in that.
Yeah, isolation.
Right? Or maybe you loved it and it was a relief from the stress of having to deal with other people for whatever reason that you feel that way.
George Jetson finally got off that thing.
Or there's,
right?
you know, we have spent more time with our immediate in-house families.
Mm-hmm. Which initially
or
was hilarious. Because, look, that's the world you created for yourself. How you liking that
right.
now? Right.
So we not only focusing on those relationships, whether we wanted to or not,
Mm-hmm.
but the relationship with ourself, I think, has been a point for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Because we just didn't have the ability, for the majority of us, to step outside of the relationship with ourselves as much as we normally would. Right? So it was something we had to deal with, something that we had to face,
mm-hmm.
and you know, take whatever we want to take from it.
Sure.
There's not any set goal. Everyone has their own journey, but whatever it is it brought to the forefront for you is something that
is worth looking at.
Right.
And I'm happy to say divorces are down and pregnancies are up.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I just heard it on the news. Here in Arizona, anyway, divorce rates are down considerably. Or divorce applications, I should say.
Yeah.
Which I think is fantastic.
That's interesting.
Way to work it out. Right.
Wow.
Or, you know, we do have a hot market. Maybe they're thinking we got to stay together because I can't afford to move out and leave you. I don't know. Right. But I'm going to take I'm going to be Pollyanna and say that it's because they're finding their love for each other again.
They found a way
they're
to
recommitting. Even in partnerships. Right? Maybe we recognize, and this happens so much in long-term, like people say, like, I'm coming up on my 20th wedding anniversary here. And I was talking with someone the other day, and they were like, man, that is so long. And even my son is like, gosh, I can't even imagine. Well, you can imagine at least 17 years of it, son, because you were there for it.
You've been there.
Yeah, that's such a long time. It's not, though. Like, I know people that have been married for 56 years, right? 75 years. And long, long, long time. Would you think, how can someone be married for 75 years? Well, if you were 14 and 17... right? You can make it work, and you're in your 80s or 90s now.
Absolutely.
But the thing that most, you know, in research and studies have shown this to be true, is at some point, and this was something that I had to reconcile early on too, because I'm a Pisces and I'm a dreamer and I believe in love. Passion fades.
Mm-hmm.
Companionship needs to have staying power.
Right. And
whether you are in a platonic relationship, a partnership, a romantic relationship, a friendship, it's the companionship. It's the ability to be able to get along, you know, in all kinds of weather is what gives you that staying power, right? And I find it so interesting when people say of their familial relationships, well, they're my family. Yes, and that's only for the first 18 years. You know, I mean, I'm not saying we can't come back and revisit it as parents age or what have you. But when you feel that you must be tied to a familial relationship, even though that was only by design to bring you some harsh lessons that you could then learn and get away from, I think that you entrap yourself, right? Like, that's the one thing where I say, well, any relationship, really, don't stay in a relationship that doesn't serve you.
Right.
However, that's the one where I find people were, okay, I can get a divorce. I can break up with this friend or this boyfriend, but boy, I can't break those ties that bind us by blood. I would offer to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, just like, when we started this conversation talking about the men that go their own way, I'm talking about, children and siblings that go their own way.
Right.
Right? I don't have, if my brother is a jerk and every time I'm around him, he just treats me horribly, I do not, if I wouldn't stand for that with anyone else, why do I have to stand for it just because it's a brother?
Right.
Doesn't mean I can love him. I don't have to like him. He doesn't have to like me. We don't have to be around each other.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that I'm in that situation. I've had those situations in the past with
Mm-hmm.
family members. But it felt incomplete to me. I needed to find a pathway to peace
Mm-hmm.
and understanding, or for me, if not for both of us, that says, I can choose to not have you in my life, but I do not need to run or hide from you.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that situation, I'm safe enough to be able to do that. That may not be the case for everyone.
Right.
But to be able to look at yourself and feel safe enough to say, and this is huge work for a lot of people, that I can transcend the family dysfunction that I've experienced in my life and the scars that it's left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's big work.
Mm-hmm.
And it can, those first and early relationships can color or cloud every other relationship that you have. And so
Right.
when you're having a problem with that partner in the current time, just like when I moved back in, and my life was going great, and then I moved back in, and then all of a sudden I had all these issues, and what I recognized is that there were still things there from relationships past that I had abandoned or left unhealed.
Mm-hmm.
And now, having greater perspective, still being triggered by it,
Mm-hmm.
but with tools and greater perspective, I'm able to maybe make decisions and choices that I couldn't have made 20 or 30 years earlier because they didn't have the maturity, because they didn't have the experience or the knowledge, because they didn't have the heart space
Mm-hmm.
to be able to see it, like you say, turn that diamond. I had to turn the diamond for a while, and I wanted to bring that up too. I was looking it up because it made me think about it. It can take on average 20 to 40 hours for a jeweler to cut a significant diamond.
Oh, yeah.
So 20 to 40 hours to cut one diamond. And I watched a program on that once. It was fascinating. And then of course there's a book called A Diamond Cutter that's really great book too. It's on Buddhism from the perspective of a non-traditional diamond cutter that managed to get into the business. I can't remember who wrote it, but anyway, they spent a lot of time looking at that diamond, examining it, turning it from just like probably a good portion of that 20 to 40 hours is examining the diamond.
Right.
Maybe make a little chip cut here, a little, shave off there, and then look at it again, and then turn it, and then look at it again. So patience is necessary in cutting diamonds, and patience is necessary in dealing with relationships with yourself, with others, with the planet, right? I want to hurry up and get to where I want to go. I have to be patient because time and earthly timetables, just don't allow for me to have that instant gratification with that.
Right.
You may resemble that remark. In the meantime, while I'm waiting, right, what can I do?
Right.
Right? Like, I'm clear with my relationships, most all of them. I'm clear with my relationship with myself, most getting there. And now I'm ready to take that next step. But the relationship that those things around me are going to bring to the table for me may not be ready yet.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So looking at it from those larger perspectives gives you more information, which allows for you to have deeper understanding, make better choices, have better outcomes, live a better life. Right?
Well, it's interesting the assumptions that we carry about relationships.
Oh, yeah.
And how the assumptions that we have can make us miserable, even more so than a relationship or not relationship or anything. it came to mind. I was in a relationship with a man, and we were together for about 4 years, and we eventually went our separate ways. But he was in this very unhealthy relationship with his mother. That was what I had put on it, right? Okay. And I could hang all sorts of reasons as to why it was unhealthy, could put him on the hook. And I'm not even saying that I was wrong.
Right.
But
and
it made me miserable.
Yeah.
It made me miserable. Right. So I remember it was interesting just one time, and I don't know what I did to come to this realization. If I did anything at all, it just was dumped onto me. And the realization was, the question was, who are you to judge?
Oh, yeah.
What is the right relationship for other people?
Oh, isn't that the truth?
And I'm like, well, fuck. I mean, I get to choose what's not right for me.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so that's where my boundaries get to be, and that's where I get to make my choices and decisions.
And only where.
Absolutely.
And only where you get to.
Absolutely. And so when I hit that point, the frustration that I felt in his relationship with his mother just melted away.
Yes.
Because I was so busy judging it and how it was wrong and it was unhealthy and it was limiting and like I said, maybe all of that was true and maybe not. But I came to the understanding that it was not my place to judge their relationship. That they were, and so we can get into whole karmic contracts and things like that, because that got clear. But the thing is that it wasn't mine. Right. It wasn't my relationship. They were doing whatever it was that they needed to do. Yeah. To create whatever it is they needed to create. I mean, there was no active abuse or anything like that. It was just a thing. And when I stopped judging it, it didn't matter anymore. And it was also easier for me to hold any boundaries that I needed to hold. And there was also less reason to hold any boundaries that I needed to hold. So that was one thing that came to mind in talking about this. And another thing, I mean, Sonya's going on a marriage of, is it 20 or 22? Why am I thinking 22?
We've been together for almost 23 years.
Okay.
But
the marriage,
right.
Okay. Because I'm like, I thought she said 20.
Yeah.
So I am like the anti. I am the anti thing, though I have not been in a relationship for 20 years. I have a 10-year-old son, but I have not been in a relationship since I became pregnant until now. So I'm going on 11 years without a romantic or a life partner of any kind. And honestly, not even having a date. And so this has been a very interesting experience for me, the lack of relationship. Because that was never the way that my life was beforehand. And so I have been sitting with that, and I go through periods of time of feeling very lonely.
Yeah, because I was going to say, when did that start happening? Because I'm sure initially with all that you were dealing with, romantic relationship was the last thing on your mind. Right.
With
your children. And...
Yes, with everything that occurred with the health and well-being of everyone involved. I'm going to say it started hitting about 2014, I would say. The awareness of, I would like.
Right.
I mean, even before then, I was like, whatever.
Right.
Then it got to I would like. And, but there has literally been nothing nothing out there. No one has come to me. It's not like I'm turning people away.
Right.
They're just not coming.
Right.
They're not showing up in any way, shape, or form into my life. And I have been experiencing that. Some of it has been a struggle, to be honest, to try to be in that space, because there are times in my life where I truly would love to have a partner. And I mean, there's also periods of times I'm like, well, I don't even care. I mean, honestly, I'm fine. So I go back and forth between that, and then I always get to visit myself with, okay, so why are you feeling this longing? And then why did it go away? But the point I wanted to make, and it's been interesting because I'm a very slow learner in this. I will, maybe I am. But I have come in this long period of time, I have been coming to awarenesses about the relationships that I have had previously, and come to understanding about those things. And also, how can I say it? Let them go. And it's not that I have been longing for or wanting. I'm getting to the point where I am understanding the final lessons and awarenesses that each of those relationships have had for me. And it hasn't been intentional. I learned a long time ago, I just roll with what comes to me.
Sure.
and so that's what's come to me. And so I've had some interesting awarenesses, and I don't know what that means. I don't necessarily assume that means that I'm going to meet someone around the corner either. And so coming to the point of maybe I never will.
I don't know. I'm having a huge hot flash right now.
I see that. She's like undressing.
There's like some fire energy coming from somewhere because, woo! Anyhow, yeah.
So, but I mean, that is a thing.
Sure it is.
That is a thing, because relationships with another person always require that the other person, well, if it's a real relationship, requires that the other person agree to also be there, and not a fantasy relationship.
But we were listening to someone Judith Hill talk about the North Node, the nodes of the moon, and one of the things she talked about was karma, and how sometimes some people can work through their karma earlier in their life, and so then by the time they hit midpoint, midheaven, 40s to 50s, and this can be, like I said, these are all relationships. So it could be, okay, you started early in your career and you were able to retire by the time you were 50, and now it's like I've done my work karma. Now what do I do with myself for the next 30, 40 years? Or the same in relationships. I see that a lot too. Someone's married for a period of years, 30 years, then they divorce or they become a widow or widower, and they just don't ever have a relationship again. And they spend the next 30 years of their life by themselves. And so it was an interesting concept to me to hear her talk about that as sort of like you've used your karma credits on that, and that it can both be an ending and it can be like a wild card, right? Because we see that sometimes in astrology too, where if there's nothing in that chart, that means you can do with that energy. It's not restricted or limited by a planet or an aspect, right? So there's that. And I always like to bring the astrology back in, which is why I'm doing it. But it's interesting to hear you say that, and to hear you talk about how that has sort of, because I know there are a lot of people that don't even think about it. This is my lot in life. I'm going to be here long for the rest of my, and then they're done. Whereas with you, it's sort of been this odyssey of exploration of yourself, of past relationships, of what new relationships you like. And sometimes people get, I don't even know. He was the love of my life. I couldn't even imagine that anyone could ever hold a candle to what we had, right? You hear that a lot too. So very interesting to hear you.
Well, I mean, the becoming self-employed and starting with the intention of starting a business. Yeah. Becoming pregnant and becoming long-term single.
Yeah.
All occurred.
And long-term caregiver.
all occurred within a 12-month period.
Wow. Here's your plan. Nope. Here's your other plan.
No, I think I'm going to be doing this instead.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's interesting.
Mm.
It's interesting, and I am open and to see what occurs. But relationships are a beautiful way, or lack thereof, are a beautiful way for us to figure out how to define ourselves.
Absolutely. Who are you if you're not your partner's reflection? Who are you if you're not society's reflection? Who are you if you're not, man versus animal? I mean, we were talking about that, right?
Who are you if you're not the title of the job that you have, or the part of the company that, or
right.
anything?
Sure. The abuser of the planet Earth, right? Mother Earth's, guardian. Because there's that too, right? Mm-hmm. It's a symbiotic relationship that we have here with this planet. I'm not talking about anything. I'm just saying I keep my house tidy because I like it that way. I feel the same way by extension of the planet.
Right.
I don't want to destroy this earth that we're on. It's beautiful. It's actually pretty idyllic. And we need to honor that. And so for me in real estate, and we're made of it. It's
like
part
our physical bodies are made of this.
We are deeply connected to it. And more people are recognizing that because Schulman's resonance is demanding it. But like I think about, my husband and I were talking about this recently, because as a real estate agent, I'm always looking at properties, and sometimes he'll stand over my shoulder, or I'll say, hey, come take a look at this. This is what they actually think that they can get for this house. Because we got monopoly houses, and I'm hoping monopoly money, because I can't even believe especially here in the Phoenix metro area. The looking at, these properties and what we do with land and how we are altering it for our own needs. Like, I don't want grass because I don't want to do the work, so I'm going to put in desert landscaping. Well, that's fantastic, except all that concrete, we know, having lived here, I've been here since 76, has changed our monsoon seasons. Right? We still have the monsoon seasons. We just don't get any rain anymore.
Right.
Because it's increased the particulates of dust and other particles in our air. And so that to me is not necessarily a good relationship that we're having here with Earth. Like, I understand water is also a finite resource, and I get that. But to put in a whole bunch of rock or a whole bunch of concrete, keep it natural. Just keep the desert floor.
Right.
Right? But then that creates a lot of dust. And we know because we see those great big haboobs that come along. So I don't know what the solution is. I just know that from when I was a little kid to where I'm at today, we don't have anywhere near the weather patterns that we used to, and that's just maybe on a global level, but I see it show up very specifically here, and it is concerning. I'm concerned about our relationship with our climate.
Well, and then the number of pools raises the humidity in the air.
Yes, it does.
For the desert.
Yes, it does.
And I mean,
the lack of trees, Before we went on air, I don't know about you all, but Zillow, or Redfin or Realtor.com on a daily basis. Realtor.
Thank you, Realtor.com. On a daily basis to look at land and houses and a part of my evolution, as I've been talking about, is also a desire to live closer to the land. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going off grid or anything like that, but to live more in tune.
And we're seeing a lot of that.
Right.
There are a lot of areas that are keeping, they're cities, but yet instead of just having empty lots that are just dead empty lots, they're allowing they're planting trees, they're growing gardens. I've seen a lot too where they're doing a lot of this no dig type of gardening, which is also great because it actually produces less weeds and throws around less different seeds of invasive things because you're not actually digging into the soil, and they're finding that actually by not disturbing the soil, you're also not disturbing the nutrients, so they can turn this soil much more quicker than they could. We need to look at that in agriculture because erosion on this planet is a huge issue. Like, I know we worry about water, which, by the way, why are they buying up all the land with water? You might want to check that out. Who's they? Come on, BG. Anyway, I digress. No, I don't. That was on purposely inserted right there. Because we can't control everything, and we can't let everything that's wrong in this world get us down. At the same time, we can't put our heads in the sand and pretend like, I don't want to know about this because there's nothing I can do about this. I believe that just by knowing and wishing and praying and setting the intention that we can get to a place where that can change is the catalyst for change. Right? So, yeah. Relationships, we're all over the place. And they are so varied and diverse and important because this is the playground that we've chosen to do all of this, and these are the tools and the toys that we have to play with, and the people that we have to play with.
And if there's at any point, any time where you feel like you want to revisit relationships, you can literally start it with any of them.
Sure.
Anywhere.
Sure. But I'd recommend you start with yourself first. Then it spirals out rather than in. Right?
So you can do, if you find yourself in relationships that are unhealthy, or not that you want, or don't define you,
or repeating these patterns over and over,
right, absolutely, then you can change that.
Yes, you can. And this year's a good year to do it because this is the year of the only constant is change. And we just came into Chinese New Year's Year of the Ox, which means we have to plod and plow that land methodically. Right? It's going to take some time. We still have time because time has been stopped. So, and I know everyone's in a big hurry to get that clock started again, to turn that engine over and get back out on the road. Not yet.
Right.
We're not there yet.
Right.
We're getting there. Like that diamond. Sheer pressure is forcing the carbon. We are carbon beings.
We are carbon.
To, become that diamond. But it starts with the relationship to ourselves, to others, to this planet. And that is the topic du jour.
Yes.
That's the topic du year.
Yeah.
Let's not make it the topic the decade. I can't even say it. That's all, folks.
That's how much she doesn't want that to happen.
I don't. And right now we are setting the tone and the pace for what we want. Not just in the next, and we've talked about this before with the Saturn, the next 20 years.
Right.
And there's going to be a lot more conversation about this too. And I think that's going to be important too. Right now we're in a Mercury retrograde. So I'm telling myself and others, not a lot of talking. We've got another week here. No talking. That's what a Mercury retrograde's about. And then with the Aquarian energy and those themes that are going to be running here for this year and the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot more talking than there ever was before. Because previously, previous 200 years or something, it was all earth.
Right.
And now we're coming into 200 years of all air. I don't want to get in trouble with Rick Levine because it's not been 800 years. he's very clear on that. But it has been about 200, right? And sometimes it's only been 80. And sometimes things it's only been 20. But we've had this preponderance of earth energy.
Right.
And within that comes the individuation, the effort, the work, the toiling, the moving the soil, the making the physical actions. And now we're going to talk about it. What have we been doing? And what are we going to do moving forward? Maybe we're not going to do anything. Maybe we're just going to be, right? Maybe now I get my hovercraft. Let's talk about it.
I want the skateboard from Back to the Future.
Absolutely. We should have had it by now.
Well, we do, I think. And people are hurting themselves.
Yes,
but...
they are. Don't hurt yourself.
Don't hurt yourself.
I don't want to walk on water. I just want to hover over it. That brings up another thing. Alchemy or manipulation. We are seeing this too. There are alchemists out there, and there are those that blew up Atlantis, and I'm going to say to you, CERN, stop it. It is us exploring the higher mind. Have a care. Have a care.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Have you heard that they released the information that, at least theoretically, scientists believe that they have found, through particles, a portal to the fifth dimension?
Sweet. Well, but we've already found that. So, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. All right. Well, I don't know if we ever came to any sort of information, but we've been talking for a little over an hour now, and we do try not to let these things run on too long. So I hope, if nothing else, we've not overwhelmed you, but we've sparked your curiosity in looking and thinking and considering relationships like a diamond, rather than a pole or a stick that you can hold either end and beat someone with, or yourself.
Yes, you are someone.
Yes. And take this next week in this Mercury retrograde energy to just sort of sit back and reflect and review and reevaluate.
What is your relationship with blank?
Blank, I love that.
And is it what you want it to be?
And what would, if it's not, or if it is, but it could be better, how could it be? Like, ask you, wouldn't it be great if? And then, fill that blank in too. So there's your homework assignment for the week. You didn't know that this was an interactive show, did you?
That's right. Well, life coaches be coaching.
They do. We try to just talk about ourselves, but somehow or another,
You get homework.
You get homework. And you get clear. And that is always part of what we're here to share, our clarity, which we hope helps make things clear for someone else. Because it's a win-win. And we all benefit from the sharing. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Be sure to share with your friends about us.
Please.
And check us out on Podbean, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and our website, inmyexperience.life. We will put links to all the other places. And until next week, I'm Sonya Lee.
And I'm Piperlyne. Thank you for joining us, and take care.